Welcome back, everybody. It is Friday, March 10th. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report coming to you live from Washington, D.C. We basically are here to talk about Ukraine, get the latest news from the war, and then second half of the show, I take your guys' questions. Typically, I start TikTok now. I've got TikTok over on my iPad and a bunch of you over on my laptop, and we wait 2 or 3 minutes so we get a good critical mass of TikTok folks, but also YouTube and others showing up. So, in the meantime, introduce yourselves if you would, say where you are from. It's always a nice way to start the show, I find. So, please do that. And then we'll start probably in about 2 to 3 minutes. And if you're watching the show recorded on YouTube or Facebook or somewhere else or LinkedIn, um, zoom ahead 3 minutes and you'll be there. Anyway, hey everybody. Hey Big Hawk. Wales. Hello, Wales. I say Wales. Wales. Capis. Alexandria, Virginia, watching exactly with binoculars. You could almost see me. Fort Myers. That must be nice. Ukraine. Woo! Arkanad in Ukraine. Welcome. Where are you in Ukraine? Can you say? If you're allowed to tell us. I assume it's safe. Unless you're in occupied territory, then maybe keep it a secret. Well, and who is that? Caw. Thank you, Caw, for the super sticker. Oh, from Lviv. Okay, we're Lviv area. Oh, that's cool. Very cool. On my list for when I finally go to Ukraine, which probably won't be soon. I'm going to wait till things calm down a little bit. Thank you for the Friday gift there. Who is that? Perfect Harmony. Thank you. All right, guys, another minute. I think we're good. We're getting a good. I think this looks like we're getting a good turnout for today. Always interesting to me, which day of the week ends up being popular for this. But Fridays, interestingly, we always get a good crowd. I don't know if it's because, I don't know, end of a long week. You guys want to talk about lighter topics like genocide. So, what do you do? All right, I'm going to get started. So, welcome everybody. And OM Ginger, thank you for that. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. This is my nightly show where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine, and some of you give me gifts, which who's doing that? Purnell is doing right now. Thank you, Purnell. The way the show works, I spend the first half of the show talking about the news. Ben, thank you for that. I spend the first half of the show talking about the news, and then the second half, I take your guys' questions or comments as well, your observations about the war, what you think is actually going on. Thank you, Louis, for that. And on TikTok, you can do it via the Q&A button. Probably easier with the Q&A button that's in the profile because I don't know what the one at the bottom of the screen does. It's a little confusing. For you guys, obviously, the comment box at the bottom works fine. Thank you for the my nose is itching this time again. Oh, all the gifts on TikTok. Oh, it's a gift day on TikTok. Thank you, Booze. And somebody else had something. Oh, Booze and By My Rules. Thank you, guys. I was just going to say gifts. I very much appreciate the gifts like people are doing on TikTok right now, like you guys do on YouTube. Actually, a bunch of you have already done super stickers on YouTube. Basically, I do this for free. When the war broke out, I started reporting on the war on TikTok generally. And then about a week later, we decided to, I mean like the community, decided to do a daily show. Thank you, Booze Fighter and Big Gator Girl. And for the first several months, I was doing a show a day, every day, 7 days a week, updating on the war. I finally lost my voice at one point, and that was my message from God saying, maybe do 5 days a week and not 7 days a week. So, but since the war started, I've been doing this full time. It is my full-time job. Nobody is paying me other than you guys. So that is why I ask for your support, and you have been very generous. So thank you. You are making it possible for me to keep doing this. So thank you so much. There you go. So thank you. I will keep trying to do shout outs for like Allie for the gifts on TikTok, and on YouTube for the super chat, super stickers, same thing. I will always do a shout out, and super chat questions, I will always make those a priority. Thank you for the mariachi hat there, By My Rules. So let's dive right in. Really quick reminder, tomorrow morning, we're going to have our weekly coffee talk, which is our special private hangout for you TikTokers, for the folks who are subscribers, the paid subscribers on TikTok. It'll be 10 a.m. Eastern time in the morning, and we just hang out and chat. We shoot the bull about God knows what. Usually goes on, I keep saying it's a half-hour thing, but we usually go an hour and 15 minutes. We go late. But please show up for that. And YouTube, Syndicate and I are in the process of figuring it out so that the $5 and up subscribers on Discord I will do the same thing simultaneously on Discord. We'll do a stream from YouTube. So that way we expand. It'll be pretty much the same price point, more or less, as TikTok, but we can expand it a little bit, which will be nice. All right, let's dive right in. So Georgia's parliament today did strike down the law that was going to require a lot of organizations to register as a foreign agent. Hang on. Oh, I didn't see OM Ginger had a thing after that. Hello from Hammond, and tomorrow will be the 1 year mark of you posting on YouTube. Oh, interesting. Oh, there you go. So I started on March 11th. Well, you know what? I think I started on TikTok first. I think I did a live on TikTok first, and then it took me a little bit of time to figure out how to do it on YouTube as well. So I will bet you, we'd have to look back and see. I'll bet you TikTok might have been March 2nd or 3rd was my first show of last year. And then you guys kicked in a week later. That's my guess from what I think I did. Because I remember spending a week figuring out all the software so I could, because now I stream to a bunch of different services at once. Figuring out that software was not easy. So yeah, thank you for that, Ginger. I wasn't even remembering that. So Georgia's parliament, I want to talk about it. It doesn't have to do with Ukraine, but it's an important international issue and it's worth just mentioning really quick. Thank you, Inspired Woman. There have been mass protests, pro-democracy protests in the country of Georgia this week. It's former Soviet republic. And basically for now, the people have won. The government, which is kind of a weird government. It wanted to join the European Union, but at the same time, it tends to lean towards the Russians. It definitely has an autocratic bent, which is problematic because it's moving Georgia away from its traditional roots in democracy. And the people rose up because the government was trying to pass a law that would cause any organization that receives more than 20% of its funds from abroad to register as an agent of foreign influence. Scary phrase that makes you sound like you're a foreign spy. Well, this is a law that was passed in Russia as well. And the Russians have quite effectively used it to stifle dissent in that country. And the Georgians were equally concerned that basically their government was now taking messages from Russia. So the people got into the streets, because they had a problem with the law from a democratic perspective, but also they were very concerned that their effort to join the European Union would be shot down if they kept going down this route of emulating Russia's lack of democracy. And the European Union even spoke out this week and said, yes, this law is inimical with joining the European Union. Fast forward to today, the Georgia parliament met today at noon local time, and they voted down the law for now. Now, that's great news. There is still concern that the government may be doing this as a bit of a ploy because you had violent protests, really violent protests in the streets, but really standing up to the police, trying to storm the parliament. And the government was interested in basically calming those down. And they even said, we want to calm things down and then go on a tour explaining to people across the country why this legislation is needed. So in other words, the government is signaling that they wanted to stop the protests and still push the legislation later on. Now, they're hoping that the opposition will have a harder time starting protests up again. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but it looks like this issue has not gone away. Nonetheless, it's gone away for now, which is at least a good thing and a step forward for democracy, and also good news for the protesters too. Yesterday, we know that Russia launched 81 missiles at Ukraine. Today, they launched around 95. Those are some of the biggest attacks in ever, let alone in the last several months. I'm trying to look here really quick. For British Ministry of Defense says this was the first, the last 2 days was the first major wave of long-range strikes since February 16th, and likely one of the largest since December of last year, so 3 months ago. What is interesting, though, is what the strikes are accomplishing, which is pretty much nothing. Now, and we've talked about this, that the Russians have been for months now trying to go after the Ukrainian electrical infrastructure. They're trying to take out the power to give people, basically, they wanted to freeze the Ukrainians to death over the winter and make them succumb, where they'd say, oh, it's so cold, we can't take it anymore. We don't have any power. We can't check the internet, watch TV. We're going to just give in to Russia. Well, that didn't happen, in part because the Ukrainian people are a little made of stronger stuff than the Russians understand. But secondly, the Russians haven't been able to keep the power off. The Ukrainians have done an insane job of keeping the power on in that country. So it hasn't worked. Now, Institute for the Study of War weighed in on this today. They're that defense think tank I really like. that's based in Washington, D.C. They said that these attacks don't have much military effect and won't impact Russia's will to fight, Ukraine's will to fight. They're likely doing it. The Russians are therefore likely doing these attacks for the audience back home. Now, this is what's really screwy. In other words, these super duper attacks that Russia has been doing on Ukraine in the last couple of days, they're not even for the war. They're not even for any war purpose. It's literally that Putin is getting criticized back home for, not having any big victories. So he's bombing the Ukrainians. And especially, remember how we said they used 10% of their new hypersonic missiles that are these missiles that go, 10 times the speed of sound or something like that? It's like 800 miles an hour or 12,000 kilometers per hour. I mean, super fast. And they're so fast that the Ukrainian defenses can't shoot them down. And basically, the assessment is that Putin used these super duper missiles, again, not to cause any significant damage. He did it so he could simply brag to his own people and say, thank you there, Dawn, for the happy Friday, to brag to his own people and say, look, the great Russian missile made it through the Ukrainian defenses. Aren't we great? But he's lying to his own. I mean, it just, I hate politicians who lie. I don't like people who lie in general. People who try to make an argument and they're lying just drives me crazy. I mean, anybody who follows me on Twitter will know this. Dishonesty is one of the best ways to piss me off with you. I don't mind you winning a fight, an argument, but don't win it by lying. That pisses me off. He's lying to their own people. I mean, and it's good for the Ukrainians in a way. I mean, it's not good that he keeps killing Ukrainians each time he does this, but they're not even trying to win at this point. The final point, which I raised last night, and I'm very glad I raised it last night because now the British Ministry of Defense and another British defense official expert raised it today. Remember last night I said, they haven't had an attack like this in weeks, if not months. And I even joked about it because I said, the Russians like us to believe, we've got all these things waiting in the wings, and the only reason we haven't attacked you is because we're being nice. And it's like, dude, you're in the 380th day. Thank you, by the way, Cheryl, for the gift. You're in the 380th day of a 3-day war. It was only supposed to take you 3 days, and you're not using everything you've got, right? The Russians are not doing these kind of attacks every night on Ukraine because they don't have the missiles to do these kind of attacks every night on Ukraine, or they would. And that's exactly what the defense experts were saying today. I was very glad I said it first. British defense expert Phillips O'Brien says this might be the more important story about the latest large Russian missile attack. It was 3 weeks after the last one. That is a very long time and reveals probably that Russia actually lacks the material for an effective, sustained campaign. The British Ministry of Defense added, the interval between waves of strikes is probably growing because Russia now needs to stockpile a critical mass of newly produced missiles directly from industry before it can resource a strike big enough to credibly overwhelm Ukrainian defenses. So that's a little bit different because what they're saying there, which is interesting, is they're saying that Ukrainian defenses are getting so good that the Russians basically, even the missiles that the Russians have aren't enough anymore, so they've got to get more. Either way, the fact that the Russians aren't doing these attacks that quickly in succession, that they're waiting weeks and weeks, means they don't have enough weapons, which is, again, great. I mean, they're still able to hurt people. They're still killing Ukrainians every night. Let's not forget that. But better for them to be having a difficult time than an easy time. CF Gregory has a super chat question. Did you see about the inflatable HIMARS made in Czech? I did. I saw a quick little broadcast on it, and they were showing that they there's a company in the Czech Republic that is making inflatable military equipment. And there was something like 35 different vehicles. The thing I saw in the video only showed a tank, but they make 35 different fake vehicles. And it's something that was done in World War II, because I remember seeing vintage video of the British doing this in northern France, I believe, in World War II. But it might have happened in World War I as well, where they basically blow up these things to look like vehicles, military vehicles, put them in fields, and then the Russians bomb them. And this, by the way, is one of the reasons some people think, remember early on in the war when we had given Ukraine 20 HIMARS and the Russians had already claimed that they blew up like 41 of them? And we were like, first of all, no, there has not been any report of even one HIMAR blown up, let alone, and HIMARS are the sort of long range or medium-range rockets we provided. Thank you, Karen, for that. But to have destroyed 41 of them when we've only given them 20 is ridiculous. The Russians probably blew up a lot of inflatable balloons that look like HIMARS. So very funny, but yeah, it's a neat. I'd love to auction that off, but might be a bit too hard to buy and transport. But wouldn't it be cool to get our hands on it? And imagine auctioning off an inflatable HIMARS. It'd be like, yes. next Christmas, or put it on your front lawn. Or something like that. The Wagner Group. So Bakhmut. We've talked a lot about Bakhmut. We still will. Bakhmut is a town in eastern Ukraine. It is on the handy dandy map right about here. A totally thank you, Ellen, for the hat. A totally irrelevant Ukrainian town. And I don't mean to be rude to the Ukrainians, but the town does not matter. The Russians have been trying for 9 months to get this town. It doesn't matter. And it looks now like the Wagner Group, which is the mercenary group in Russia that has been fighting mostly in the Bakhmut area. It's been these mercenaries that took the lead, that they have paused their attacks in the last couple of days. And Institute for the Study of War says that it could be one of two reasons. One, they could have culminated, meaning when a military force that's going on the offensive basically tires out. And it could peter out or tire out because you've lost too many men to either death or injury. Your men are simply exhausted and can't fight anymore. You've lost too many vehicles, right? You've lost your ammunition. But whatever it is, you no longer have a cohesive, effective enough military fighting machine in that area to go forward and fight, so that now you're defending. So that's one possibility, is that this is a sign that Wagner basically has pooped out. The other possibility, they're saying, is that there is the arrival of an increased number of conventional Russian forces to the area, meaning regular Russian military. And it's possible that Wagner is waiting for these conventional reinforcements, the regular military guys, to fully arrive. At the same time, Wagner takes a break, and then they start the fighting again. Either way, still good news if there's a break, because it gives the Ukrainians a break too. Thank you, Tom Clark, which lets them rest, and it lets them potentially dig in even more. This was funny too. Okay, so the Wagner Group is very interesting. Initially, all the stories we heard about these guys are mercenaries. They're murderous thugs and killers. Literally, I mean, they're mercenaries that didn't really care about the rules of war to start with. Not that the Russians do generally anyway, but this group was particularly vicious. Then they go, as you know, and they recruit a bunch of prisoners. Thank you, Karen, for the Friday thing. They recruit a bunch of prisoners, and they tell the prisoners, if you fight for us for 6 months, we will expunge your record. We'll give you a pardon, right? And they were going particularly after prisoners that were in prison for 10 years or longer, a 10-year or longer sentence, who were basically felonies. Murderers, violent crimes, things like this. Well, and Cliff, I see yours. I'll get to it in a sec. The violent crimes, they, let me just think of this real quick. Oh yeah. So they're very cocky, because they exist because they think the regular Russian military sucks, which we now know it does kind of suck. But nonetheless, if you're fighting alongside the regular Russian military, you don't want your existence to be a constant message, hey, the rest of you suck. That doesn't work for working together as a team, right? Well, he pisses everybody off. He pisses Putin off because he makes Prigozhin, who's the billionaire that runs the mercenaries, makes it pretty clear that he's vying for Putin's job. He's doing a lot of criticism that basically is criticizing Putin, and he's up showing Putin by showing up at the holidays at the front lines when Putin and all of his generals aren't, right? So you get to about a couple weeks ago where Putin's finally had it, and Putin cuts off the ammunition to his troops. So the Wagner mercenaries are now fighting at the front line in Bakhmut. Oh, thank you for the llama there. Who was that? Jazz Diamond. The Wagner mercenaries are fighting at the front in Bakhmut, and they're doing most of the fighting. And the Russian Ministry of Defense cuts off, according to Prigozhin, the head of Wagner, 80% of their artillery ammunition just gets cut off, and they stop giving them, firepower. So these guys are stuck there in the middle of a battle with the Ukrainians, and they just pulled the plug and stopped giving them ammunition because they were so pissed at them and basically wanted them to die. Now Prigozhin's, thank you, Sederman. Now Prigozhin is claiming that literally the Russian government is just sending his men nonstop in Bakhmut because they're trying to basically kill all of his men so he won't be left with any. Because let's face it, a guy who potentially wants Putin's job and controls his own private army is somewhat dangerous, right? So anyway, that takes you to today. Well, now today we found out. I apologize because I forget. I saw this on Twitter from a defense expert, but I forgot who it was. And he's tweeting out the pictures and everything that they found Russian soldiers with a memo in their backpack. And the memo was giving them sort of rules of behavior. And it was saying things like, whenever you talk about Putin or the general or the military leaders, always be positive. Whenever you talk about, thank you for, who was that? Belgard for the crown. Whenever you talk about the Ukrainians, always call them Nazis. And always, it gave specific fascists, like specific, literally things you're supposed to use. Well, it's like 10 points. One of the points says, if you ever get into trouble, for example, a traffic accident, or you're caught stealing or committing a crime, make sure you tell whoever catches you that you're a member of the Wagner group. This is the memo for Russian soldiers. If they get into trouble, claim you're the other guys, is what the memo says, which is absolutely just, again, it's not just funny on its face, but what's great about it is we are watching a civil war take place in real time in the Russian military. And these guys cannot fight as a unit if they hate each other and they keep going after each other. So, it's because they won't trust each other. Anyway, it's good news is the point. Next, I'm going to talk about Volodar, which is another town the Russians have been trying to get. That's the town that the Russians were just destroyed in a couple of weeks ago. Well, looks like they're going for it again, with equally bad expected outcomes. But first, I want to tell you really quick about my Discord. As I've told you guys before, I do this for free. I have been since the war broke out, so for over a year. I've been covering Ukraine. We've been doing these live shows every day, Monday to Friday. And then I also do throughout the day news updates on Twitter as well. Twitter and TikTok, I should say as well. The support I get is from you all. Nobody pays me, which is fine. But I've got to pay the bills. I'm not independently wealthy. So your guys' support has been amazing. And again, thank you for the gifts you keep giving me on TikTok and your guys' questions and stickers. One other way we do it is with Discord. And Discord has been very cool because it's a sort of a chat community. And you can find my link at aravosis.com via the links in my profile. Just click on the URL in my profile. It'll show you my Discord there, or discord.aravosis.com. But it's free. But there's also a way you can become a paying member via Patreon. And if you're a paying member, you can get certain benefits like our private auction. We've got a couple different auctions, but there's a private one just for donors. Thank you, Riverside, for the galaxy, and Spirits here for the rose. There's also, I've just instituted this now, but we've got to set it up. Syndicate's helping me set it up for in the same way that for the TikTokers that paid TikTok subscribers every Saturday morning when I can, which is pretty much every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time US. We're going to do a private hangout just for the TikTok subscribers who pay. Well, I'm going to start doing the same thing for the Discord subscribers who are $5 and up. So every Discord subscriber who's $5 and up, we'll start doing this Saturday morning. Tomorrow morning, I'm not promising I'm going to be able to pull it off because Syndicate's still going back and forth helping me figure this out. But if I can, I will. But otherwise, we'll do it next week. But the final thing is we also have auctions too. Right now, we're down to one auction item. We just finished off auctioning my piece of the Berlin Wall that was really cool that I broke off in 1989. And now we've got the current auction is my Zelensky sweatshirt. We found the sweatshirts that Zelensky likes to wear. This is the one he wore to the White House, or the style he wore to the White House. He wore to the joint session of Congress. I believe he wore it to Parliament. And he's been wearing it again the last couple of days. We've got green and black. And anyway, we found it. We found the company he uses, and we've got a bunch of them. This one's mine. I love it. But we're auctioning these off too, and half the money will go back to Ukraine, and half the money goes to support my work because, as I told you, I'm doing this for free and it pays my bills. So win-win. I think we've already sent like $10,000 or so in auction money to Ukraine, and we've gotten a lot of stuff. We've helped them get drones. We've helped them buy boots for the soldiers, camouflage nets, lots of different things. And not just soldiers, but a lot of stuff for the soldiers. All right, let me dive right back. So you can find those links in my profile and find the links via aravosis.com. Volodar. So Volodar, another Ukrainian town that's been very important in terms of the fighting. So first we're at Bakhmut, which is up here. Volodar is down like more or less here, I'm going to say, like a little bit southwest of Donetsk, maybe west southwest of Donetsk. And that is another town that the Russians are trying to get, and they're having a very bad time. Oh, let me get Cliff Wolf's question first. Sorry about that. I forgot about you, Cliff. Had it sitting there. Heard there was huge fight this morning between General Ukraine and Zelensky on Bakhmut. Okay, you need better punctuation there, kiddo. General Milley talks of negotiations between UK, Putin, World War I and World War II, ended on defeat. Finally heard many civilians in Bakhmut spying on Ukraine for Russia. Okay, you're losing me here, kid. You tried to squeeze too much in there. I don't mind if you just write out some separately, but huge fight this morning between a Ukrainian general and Zelensky on Bakhmut. Interesting. Okay, I guess it's possible. If that's true, well, here's the thing. Zelensky has been saying for the last week that it is very important that the Ukrainians don't leave Bakhmut, that they've got to keep fighting for it. It is strategically important. All the experts say it ain't strategically important at all, but that it is very helpful because Bakhmut, there's a reason the Russians have been trying for 9 months to take over Bakhmut unsuccessfully, because it's really hard. And it's been the Ukrainians have a very good defense in that town. So if you're Ukrainian, you sit there, and the numbers, by the way, it's so hard for the Russians to take Bakhmut that the Russians have reportedly, according to NATO, the Russians have lost 5 men for every 1 man the Ukrainians have lost fighting in Bakhmut. So in other words, every time a Ukrainian dies, so to speak, 5 Russians die in Bakhmut. Now, that's great for the Ukrainians. Thank you, Robert, for the hat and the mustache. That's great for the Ukrainians. And if you're Ukrainian, that's better than the typical average. The typical average when you are defending a city or whatever, the typical average as a defender is going to be 3 deaths to 1. Okay, 3 deaths to 1. In this case, it's 5 deaths to 1. So from the Ukrainian perspective, they figured, you know what? It's not clear that we can win Bakhmut, but thank you, Iggy Woman. That I do like that boat. I think the coloring is very cool and the way it shimmers. Thank you for that. The Ukrainians figure, even if, and they're not going to say this publicly, but even if they can't win Bakhmut, they've got to fight these Russian troops somewhere. If they give away Bakhmut to the Russians will simply move and fight somewhere else. And Bakhmut is so to the Ukrainians' advantage. Why not just fight there and have more Russians die? Because basically, if you don't fight them there, the Russians may fight somewhere else where now it's only 3 Russians dying to every Ukrainian, right? If you're a Ukrainian military, you want as many Russians to die compared to how many of, I know this sounds kind of gross, but you know what I'm talking about. You want more Russians dying than your own troops. So you'd rather fight in a city where more Russians are dying. Bakhmut is that city. So that's why we think the Ukrainians have been continuing to fight, because even if they can't, maybe they can win it, but even if they can't, it's been just destroying the Russians' best troops. Well, Zelensky's been out there saying, no, it is a super important town strategically. The experts disagree with him. And the thinking is that Zelensky was saying this because A, he has to say it. He's the president of Ukraine. Once again, he can't get up there and say what I'm saying, which is Bakhmut doesn't matter. If he says Bakhmut doesn't matter, his own people are going to kill him, right? You can't say that. Now, the ratio, I will say, because I see Lilia, the Ukrainians, yes, the Ukrainians are saying that the ratio is actually 1 Ukrainian death to 7 Russian deaths. That's what the Ukrainians are saying. NATO the other day said they believe it's more like 1 Ukrainian to 5 Russians. So I was just giving the NATO number to be more conservative. But yes, the Ukrainians are saying it's 1 to 7, which is even better. In any case, so A, Zelensky may be saying this because he has to. He's the president. He can't say, let's give up on Bakhmut. 2, I still wonder if all of this is disinformation. If Zelensky and the general, if they had a fight today, if they want people to see a fight, if they want the Russians to see this and think, oh, a lot of turmoil with the Ukrainians over Bakhmut, we need to go there and just take that town, right? Thank you, Russell, for the March thing. We need to just go take that town. And it basically convinces the Russians to throw even more troops in there because the Russians think, oh, the Ukrainians, they don't know what they're doing. And if you're Ukrainian, what you really want is the Russians to just keep throwing their best troops in there because it's a meat grinder and they're just getting their troops killed. So I just don't know about the stories of who's fighting whom, but it does make me wonder if it's not a little bit of misinformation. Because let's face this too. The Ukrainians have been masters at information, not just information in terms of information warfare with the way they do it on the internet, telling their story, but they've been really good at tricking the Russians into doing things so that now I'm more suspicious when I hear these kind of stories, because I think the Ukrainians might be tricking them. Anyway, thanks, Cliff. Who knows? Let me just scroll down, make sure I didn't have another one here. Oops, I don't think so for now. All right, let me jump ahead to, so we were talking about Volodar. So hang on a second. Volodar. So Volodar, as I was saying, Volodar, Ukrainian town down here by Donetsk, another big area that the Russians are going after because the Russians really, really want all of Eastern Ukraine. Right now, they've got 100% of this province, and they've got maybe 50% of this province. Well, they're trying to get the 50% they don't have, which is the top part. Well, that includes Volodar, that includes Bakhmut. It also includes Kremina, which is up here more or less. So they're trying to get the part they don't have yet because we think Putin basically told them, you better, oops, that's my laundry machine after 13 years still scares me, or 14 years. Putin said, you better take that land. Well, the Russians tried to take Volodar a few weeks ago. It was an abject disaster. Russian troops got up and ran. They were so scared. Again, new recruits, it's all the new recruits, and the new recruits don't know what they're doing, right? Because they haven't been trained, and they're just regular. They're like Starbucks baristas that they dragged into war and gave them 1 day of training. The troops got up and ran. A lot of them got killed. The ones who got up and ran left their vehicles behind. So the Ukrainians got at least 30 military vehicles, and these could be everything from tanks to jeeps to whatever, but 30 military vehicles that were apparently in perfect shape, because they didn't abandon them because they weren't working. They abandoned them because they were scared. Okay. Volodar, and I forget the exact number, horrific number of Russians who died. And Volodar, I think, is also, I'm pretty sure Volodar is correct me if I'm wrong, that Volodar was the attack where the Ukrainians had created a kill zone for the tanks. They left the main road open, but then all the fields on the side of the road, they put mines. So the tanks, they basically corralled the tanks through the road, started bombing them. And when they bombed them, the other tanks decided to turn around. But to turn around, it's a tank. It's not, if this is the road, and you're the tank, you've got to turn around like this off the road. Well, as soon as they went off the road, they blew up because they hit a mine. Well, the tanks then are getting blown up, and now they're getting stuck because now you've got tanks in front and behind who have turned around and blown up. So all the tanks in the middle can't move, and the Ukrainians are just bombing these guys. It was a disaster for the Russians. What I saw some of the military experts saying, they were saying it's not even, it's unfair to call it a tank battle, because it was not a tank battle. It was a Russian tank versus Ukrainian mine battle, and that these recruits were so new and so untrained. These are all the guys that Putin dragged into the military back in September, the 300,000. They were so new and so untrained that they didn't even know what the Ukrainians typically do. So they didn't even know this is something the Ukrainians do, like this kind of tactic where they trap you and everything. That's Volodar. Well, what do you think the Russians are planning on doing? They're going back to Volodar. Woo-woo! This came from Institute for the Study of War, the think tank I like. Russian forces may be preparing to resume offensive operations around Volodar, although persistent personnel and ammunition issues, in other words, they're having personnel problems, they don't have enough troops, but ammunition, they don't have enough ammunition either, will likely prevent Russian forces from securing significant tactical gains if they decide to resume offensives in the area. Defense Minister Shoigu reportedly ordered the local commander to take Volodar at any cost. You got to love that too. So the folks back in Moscow, And Shoigu was doing it because Putin did it. Putin must have told the defense minister, I don't care. I want that town. So the defense minister is telling the commander, I don't care. I want that town. So the commander's like, okay, I guess we're all going to die. So they're going back into the town that they got obliterated in 3 weeks ago. They're not prepared. They don't have the men. They don't have the ammunition, and they're going back in. And it's like, okie dokie. So Institute for the Study of War concludes, the resumption of costly offensives around Volodar would be a misallocation of already degraded forces to an increasingly nonsensical operational effort. But Muradov, who's the local commander, Muradov's personal motivations, meaning he got yelled at by the defense minister, may cause Russian forces in the area to resume these operations nonetheless. Oh, I'm telling you, it's, the good news is there's so much ego and there's so much just, you're dealing with a dictatorship. So what the boss wants, the boss gets. And Putin is saying, God damn it, do it. And they can't say no or he's going to have him shot. Thank you, Brenda, for the hat there. There's a CNN story that was a bit disturbing today. We still have to see if it's a true story or what. But it might be true. CNN has sources saying that Russia has been capturing some of the U.S. and NATO provided weapons left on the battlefield in Ukraine and sending them to Iran, where the U.S. believes Tehran will try to reverse engineer the systems. Russia believes that continuing to provide captured Western weapons to Iran will provide an incentive to Tehran to maintain its support for Russia's war in Ukraine. So the idea is it gives the Ukrainians a very strong reason for staying in the war, because they're getting great weapons from great American weapons from the Russians. Now, hang on. Otanbot has an interesting little addition here. Iran has a history of reverse engineering U.S. weapons like the Tufan anti-tank guided missile. I did read this earlier. I read it myself privately, from the BGM-71 tow missile in the 1970s. This is a cost-effective way for Iran to enhance its military capabilities and overcome potential arms embargoes. Now, one concern there's a lot of concerns with that. Guess who is not going to be happy about Iran getting American weapons? 1, America. 2, Israel. I worry that this, and I've talked about this previously, that this puts more pressure on Americans to stop the war. We were talking before when I mentioned that I had heard months ago that General Milley, who's our top general, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff here in America, that he was the problem. I was saying, what's Biden's problem? Why is he so afraid of Putin? And a couple different reporters told me, Milley, it's Milley. And in thinking about it, the Russians have gotten very close to China, which is not good, but they've gotten very close to Iran, which is even worse, right? And the Iranians not the Iranians, but they've gotten very close to Iran. And in this case, if the Iranians are getting our weapons from them, that's bad, because it not only puts the entire Middle East in danger because of the balance of power there, but Israel especially. And keep in mind, Israel's got nuclear weapons. Iran is trying to get nuclear weapons. Iran probably could get nuclear weapons pretty soon. You're dealing with a very tense situation out there. It's only a matter of time before Israel bombs Iran. Maybe not nukes, but bombs Iran. And it's, So in any case, my point here is I worry with stories like this. Thank you, Zoe, because they're bad on its face, but they're also really bad messaging. They're the kind of thing that make people less likely to support Ukraine, because they say, look at all the bad ramifications from this war, And they're not wrong. They are bad ramifications, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop, fighting wars and defending what is right. Few more stories. Per Sky News, Switzerland's government will not change its longstanding policy banning the transfer of Swiss-made arms to a third country. There was talk that the Swiss were considering this. Specifically, there were requests from Germany, Denmark, and Spain. Switzerland does sell weapons. It's got a very big arms industry, but it claims honestly, it's total bullshit. You don't have a big arms industry and claim neutrality. What does that mean? We armed the world, but we're for peace. Okay, sure you are, Mary or Heidi. So the Germans, the Danes, and the Spanish wanted to re-export weapons that were made in Switzerland to Ukraine, and the Swiss said no because we're impartial. We're objective. So that's really bad. I also have a Patreon set up, by the way. We're going to talk in a second about the story that I had to skip last night, but I'm not skipping it tonight. The news is going long, which means I'm going to probably skip Patreon again. Sorry, guys. But there's good stories, and I want to talk about the JDAMs and why they're so important. That's our next story. But really quick, just to mention to you guys, I do have a Patreon. Please do check it out. It's patreon.com/Aravosis. You can find the link in my profile on TikTok. Just click that link. You'll get the link of links. You can also find it via aravosis.com. You guys, or frankly, it's at the bottom of my screen. You guys have my Patreon right there. Patreon's great because it's a nice way to provide a monthly gift to creators that you like. And you pretty much can just, $2, $5 a month, $10 a month, $25 a month. I've got one guy providing $100 a month, Arctic Legacy, wonderful man, $100 a month. I don't expect that, but nonetheless, very sweet. But it's a nice way of basically providing support. I have been doing this full time. Nobody pays me. You guys pay me, but nobody pays me. Thank you, Pereira, Nick, for the hat and mustache. So in order to be able to do this, it really does help. So I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm skipping Discord. I'm not sure what I said, Jingle. Thank you. Yeah, I'm skipping the Discord tonight. Usually we'll hang out afterwards, but I'm going to go long on here. So we'll stay here tonight and we'll go long again because there's just been a lot of news this week. In any case, do check out my Patreon. It helps me a lot. It helps me keep going with the work here, but also there are some benefits. If you become a $5 a month or more subscriber, you get access to our VIP auction there. Now, we've got a regular auction and a VIP auction. Depends. Different things are in each auction. I'm not even sure right now. I think right now, actually, this shirt is it. Oops. Thank you for the Friday gift there. Who was that? Is that Russell? No, Russell's the March gift and Karen is the Friday gift. Thank you both. This sweatshirt that we're auctioning off actually is in the public auction right now, which means everybody can bid on it, even if you don't pay, because I also want to give people access who can't pay. But the piece of the Berlin Wall I had was a special auction, my piece of the Berlin Wall, that I only put in the private auction, in the VIP auction. So only people who were supporting me at $5 a month or more could go there. The other thing, as I said earlier, we're going to do is probably starting next week, I'm going to start doing specials on Saturday morning along with the TikTok people. The YouTube or the Discord people will join us too. Anybody who pledges $5 a month or more will be able to join us for a Saturday coffee talk we do. That's really fun. I mean, we hang out for about, I'd say half an hour, but it's been an hour or more every time. And we just hang out and shoot the breeze. And it's been I go on video, you guys chat, type. It's been really fun. So please do join us for that. Thank you, Alan, for that. It's patreon.com/Aravosis. So thank you. I always say, if you've been watching for months and you really like it, consider helping out if you can. All right. We had a couple questions here. Karen Jones. I've got Karen and then Alan. Thank you, Alan, for that. Do you think the Wagner mercenary group will pull out of Ukraine if problems with Putin are not resolved? The problem is, can they? They're still Russian. I mean, if they refuse to fight in Ukraine, it's a dictatorship. Putin could just have them killed. Putin can have all of them killed. I mean, that's the problem there. In the end, I don't think he can. I mean, it's very easy to get rid of him. Putin does it all the time. Right? Throw him off a balcony, give him some poison tea. I mean, this is what the Russians do. So I just don't see, here's the thing. I think Prigozhin, who's the billionaire who runs the mercenary group, he thought what you're insinuating. He thought he carried some power. He thought, I've got these guys. They're the best fighting force we've got, and you need me. And that's why he thought he could go around and swagger and make fun of the regular Russian military, criticize the Ministry of Defense, say our government isn't doing enough, pretty much criticize and upstage Putin himself, because this guy thought, I've got the best soldiers, they need me. And all of a sudden, Putin, here's the thing. All of a sudden, Putin turned around and basically said, okay, well, if you've got the best soldiers and you might walk away, or worse, you might, I was just going to say, Amuse Curtis is saying Putin can't just have them all killed. That would start a coup attempt. Well, here's the thing. If you're Putin, you don't like that this guy's got his own military force, because maybe you do think he'll walk. Thank you, Nick, for that, for the Friday thing. Maybe you do think he'll walk, or worse, try a coup. So what do? Putin is having his men killed. I mean, this is what's happening. Prigozhin came out and complained about it. He said, Putin keeps sending more of my men into Bakhmut, and he just keeps sending them again and again and again, and they're getting slaughtered while not giving them the ammunition they need. So it is quite possible that Putin's solution to all of this was simply to say, okay, I'll just have all your men, you might walk away, or you might even try a coup against me. I'm just going to have all your men killed and see how you feel. And the way I'm going to kill them, if I slaughter them in public, that would look bad. I'm going to make them brave martyrs of the revolution. We're just going to keep sending them into Bakhmut when basically at this point, they're not, they're getting slaughtered in Bakhmut. So thank you. Who is that? I see Boofhead for the Rose and Nick Pereira for the Friday. So anyway, it ain't good. I think he really thought, the guy running Wagner, Prigozhin, really thought he had a thing going. And I think it comes back to the old issue of like no one's, or everyone is expendable. No one's not expendable. And I think he thought he wasn't expendable, and it looks like he is. The money gun was Chazak. Thank you for that. Okay, that was Karen's. Thank you, Karen. We had somebody else popped up. There's a super sticker, which thank you. Are there more super? Hang on a second. Oh, Lilia. Yeah. Sorry about that. Oh, hang on. I did have Lilia's save, and then I totally forgot to bring it up. I'm sorry about that. What do you make of Iran and Saudi Arabia restarting diplomatic relations? Yeah, I saw that. And the meeting was presided by China. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I saw it this morning, and I wasn't sure sort of what to make of it. I mean, let's face it. It scares you, but at the same time, the Saudis control a ton of the world's oil, and we really don't want Iran shutting down the Saudis' oil. So if they have better relations, maybe it means Iran is less likely. But at the same time, if the Saudis have better relations with Iran, does it mean that the Saudis are now going to start helping Iran more, and make Iran stronger? I don't know. I mean, the other thing is the Saudis then approached us and said they're happy to reach a peace treaty or whatever with Israel as long as the U.S. gives them, what was it, nuclear technology and two other things that were equally kind of like, are you out of your mind? I forgot what were the other two. What were the other two? It was nuclear technology and two other things. And a lot of us were just going, nuclear technology, a security guarantee, and something else. And then they'd consider being friends with Israel. I was just like, yeah, whatever. See, the Saudis are another ones where they honestly, we're kind of treating the Saudis the same way we are Putin. When you empower people to think that you're afraid of them or you're afraid of losing them, they end up kind of yanking your chain and trying to get more and more. The Saudis know we're afraid of losing them, so they just keep yanking our chain. Maybe we should try to get the Saudis to be afraid of losing us. I mean, do the Saudis really want to suck up to the Russians? Do they want the Russians to be their protector? Oh, good luck there. I mean, and just, they're just a horrible, too bad they've got all the oil because they're just a horrible government, obviously. Let me see. So Lilia. Okay. So we've got Lilia. I think that's it. Was there another super chat I missed or no? Sorry. Just checking here on the YouTube thing. JDAMs. Please do keep the gifts coming, by the way. If I missed another super chat, let me know. Otherwise, I will continue and the gifts on here. And let me talk about JDAMs now. So reported the other day that JDAM kits had arrived in Ukraine and were operational. Thank you, Roshin. As I always say, I am not a defense guy. I am a foreign policy guy. That's my training. That's my work experience. But, I'm not an idiot. So I do try to, I did work on arms control issues and things like that. So JDAMs are basically a kit that we have given the Ukrainians that lets them take a dumb bomb. A dumb bomb is a bomb that, doesn't have GPS, right? It's not, the bomb can't fly and go, we're off course a little, let's go this way. It's a bomb that you launch and you hope it hits its target. And if it starts to go off course, it starts to go off course, right? It's a dumb, you almost can think of World War II when they would have those sights out the bottom of the plane with the big X and they drop the bomb and then the bomb went where the bomb went, right? Well, this kit allows the Ukrainians to take those dumb bombs and they literally put like fins on them and other equipment that turns them into little flying machines. So these things can glide and go much farther. They can, I believe the farthest distance is like 45 miles or something, which is really pretty far. And it gives them global positioning, GPS, and inertial guidance. So it really can be much more precise in what these can hit, right? So we're providing this to Ukraine. Big deal. And I did a little research and actually, who was it? I'm already forgetting. I did see the article the night before, but you reminded me of it by email. Daniel O'Neill, I think, was the one who sent it to me. Daniel sent me an article that I want to read you a little bit, talking about why this new technology is so great for Ukraine. A game changer. So this was from the publication The Drive. Even a small number of JDAM ERs, JDAM-ER is the version, will present new challenges for Russian forces. A standard JDAM provides a precision-guided fire-and-forget weapon. Fire and forget, meaning the plane can fire it and then zoom back home. The plane doesn't have to sit there and keep like with a laser on the target. So the plane is now able to get shot down while you're waiting for the bomb to hit. Okay. So precision guided fire and forget weapon that an aircraft can launch at fixed targets, meaning buildings on the grounds and things like that, in any weather, and then immediately turn away to put distance between it and enemy defenses. So one of the things we were talking about the other day, I was asking you guys, like, okay, military folks weigh in, what's the advantage? The Russians have got a lot of anti-aircraft equipment and other things in their territory that they're holding in Ukraine, and it's dangerous for Ukrainian planes to fly over. Well, one possibility, and I think maybe this is going to be later in here, one possibility is the Ukrainians fly in really low, maybe they pull up to fire the weapon and then zoom out of there at full speed. And it lets them get a little bit further into Russian territory than they normally could do. And now this bomb takes off. So that's one of the ways you can use this weapon. Previously, this is The Drive. Previously, we surmised that one tactic could involve, that's actually what they said, could involve a jet heading towards the target at low level before popping up and releasing the JDAM in a lofted trajectory. The bomb should retain a significant degree of accuracy, even if the GPS signal is jammed or otherwise lost. So that's pretty cool. If the GPS gets jammed, the bomb still stays accurate. The JDAM's wing kit then expands the reach of the weapon and helps further improve survivability. At a roundtable, General Hecker, a U.S. general, specifically noted that the JDAM-ER gives Ukrainian forces the ability to hit entirely new target sets that may be beyond the reach of existing air-launched weapons and ground-based systems, including the U.S.-applied HIMARS systems and the MLRS multiple launch rocket system. In other words, the Ukrainians can use these to go even farther than HIMARS, important point, but also HIMARS and MLRS are among Ukraine's farthest reaching precision strike weapons, but the maximum range of their rockets is around 43 miles. That's because we're not giving them the longer range rockets. the HIMARS can go 200 miles or 300 kilometers, but we're refusing to give them them. Ukraine's JDAM-ERs could potentially, now listen to this. On top of that, the HIMARS contains 200-pound bombs, 200-pound warheads. The JDAMs could potentially carry up to 2,000-pound bombs. So 10 times larger of a bomb the JDAM can carry. So in other words, A, you've got better precision. B, possibly safer for you, the guy trying to launch the bomb, in terms of getting hit back. C, the bomb is 10 times bigger than the other bombs that you're using, which means if, for example, you're going after a Russian military barracks or a Russian ammunition depot or a Russian military headquarters, you have a much better chance of blowing it up by using this bomb. That's it for JDAMs. I've got one more quick story, and then we'll go to the questions here. Sorry, let me see. Super chat question from Bash Brannigan. Thank you, Bash, for that. It was, hang on a second here. My thing here. It was reported yesterday afternoon. Russia's largest bank collapsed. Yeah, a spare bank or whatever collapsed almost 80% due to sanctions. Could this affect the war? I have no idea how the banking thing plays in. I mean, that's way too deep of economics for me. I did see the story yesterday. We had so much news, I cut it. But yeah, Russia's its largest bank is doing very badly because of the sanctions. I mean, overall in its face, obviously that's a good thing, but I don't understand well enough what that means. For example, if the bank is in trouble, it probably means the Russians will have to spend a lot of money to buttress it. And that's money the Russians don't have because we already know they're having a significant budget deficit because of the war. And they're trying not to use their reserves because they're using their currency reserves to try to buck up the economy because we have the sanctions on them. So at the very least, hopefully it causes them to spend a lot more money. And at the very best, maybe it starts to cause other problems in the economy. There's a shock yesterday and today with our banks. Yeah, I was just going to say, Full Steam Ahead is mentioning this on TikTok. There was, is it SVB Bank? I think it's called. I forget. Out in Palo Alto, Silicon Valley, that was loaning to tech startups, and they're having kind of a huge crisis. And there was a run on the bank, didn't have enough money. I don't know what happened today. I think the government stepped in today. Silicon Valley. Oh, there you go, SVB, Silicon Valley Bank. There you go. And I think the government stepped in today to help. But the bank stocks, internationally, bank stocks took a hit because of it, because it freaked people out. So, maybe it starts to cause more economic chaos in Russia. Also, is it a sign, and I just don't know, is it a sign of other banks in Russia potentially having problems next? What you need now, we need somebody who's an economics PhD or somebody who really knows their economics to weigh in and tell us, is there, anything more as to the significance of this in terms of the Russian economy? Sberbank. I mean, largest private lender, eReader is saying largest private lender in Russia, as much as any bank can be private in Russia, right? VDB is doing worse than Sberbank. Interesting. Sorry, just looking here to see what else. TikTok is chaos for the moderators. TikTok is always a joy. I love my TikTokers, but boy, TikTok has trolls, although usually it's this. Well, now that we're an hour into the show, usually it's calmer because they pretty much, blown away that batch of trolls that day. But yes, TikTok is always a joy for the moderator. But it's a fun crowd. Otherwise, it's just, you got to get the tocalo. What is it? Tocalo me tocaco, as the Greeks say, and probably the rest of everybody else. The good with the bad. What's it? Lo bueno con lo malo or something like that, or lo bueno y lo malo, whatever. But the good and the bad. What do you do? I know I will say I almost enjoy the trolls to a degree. Not when they overwhelm and you can't get them, but to me, there's something just cathartic about banning a troll. I love it. Thank you, Reef Clips, for the hat there. I just love doing it. Any case, there you go. Like I said, I don't know if anybody else has more to weigh in on the bank thing. I don't know enough about it. Let me see here. Oh, sorry. Let me jump on TikTok itself for questions. Oh, no. I'm sorry. Here's the last story I was going to tell you. This is a funny one. Let me tell you this. So one reason Russia is doing so bad in Ukraine, and Institute for the Study of War weighed in on this. This is something I'd read a year ago about this, but it's very funny anyway. Sorry, actually, hold on. People are weighing in on the banks a little bit. Metallium Harvester. I don't know about Russian banking, but a fall that large implies they couldn't leverage their debt anymore and had to start selling assets to avoid a run. Okay. Yes, Cliff, we were just talking about Silicon Valley Bank as well. Yale finance professor says Russia's economy is much worse than reported internationally, as our reports were using numbers Russia gave them. Well, this is Yale. Yale has been putting out a lot of studies about sanctions that's been saying that the sanctions are hitting much harder than it seems. Holly is saying, how do you think this is going to end? That's up to us, Holly. Ukraine has the ability to get all of its land back if we give them the weapons they need, and we're not. And I don't mean nuclear weapons. I'm not saying being crazy, right? But we refuse to give them long-range missiles. They need these long-range missiles called ATACMS. We won't give them. We just won't, because we're afraid of making Putin angry. It's like, okay, we didn't want to do tanks up until a month ago, and now, because we waited a year for the damn tanks, we're now dribbling the tanks slowly. Ukraine's getting tanks. The American tanks may arrive in 6 months, or they may take 2 years, we're told. I mean, it's ridiculous. But by taking so long for each of these new weapon systems, we forget, because frankly, Biden and the government know that it's not like they're going to get the weapons the day we say, okay, we're going to send them now. It could take months or even a year or more in the case of the tanks. So The war could end well for Ukraine if we would give them the weapons they need. We are too afraid to give them the weapons they need. So I fear the war is going to keep dragging out. Ukraine will have some successes, but I fear public sentiment will keep turning against the war because we're trying to win it in a half-assed manner. And you don't do that. You don't win wars or anything you work on by doing it half-assed. You go full blow, boom, and try to win. But when you have to try to win, then you half win and you half don't win. And people get tired after all. For example, that's the other thing. People will sit there in the US and other places and say, I mean, the opposition, we've been fighting for a war. Why aren't we winning? Right? We've already given them blah, blah, $1 billion. Why do they want more? That's what happens when you drag, and we're the ones who dragged it out. When we drag it out, it means people who are marginal supporters in the middle, are more likely to say, it's been a year now. We've given them a lot of money. How much more do they want? Without realizing, well, it's been a year and they need more money because we actually didn't give them what they needed. We gave them half of what they needed. And the rest of it weren't even ridiculous things to ask for. We were just scared of Putin the entire way. Putin wouldn't have been tired. A DMZ, this is interesting. Domenichini saying, a demilitarized zone would help end the war. Might I suggest every Russian border town as the buffer zone? It's pretty much China's plan, but on Russia's side of the border. Well, they need a demilitarized zone anyway at the end, probably, right? If you want to keep the peace between the countries, they either need a demilitarized zone or they're going to need NATO troops or something on the Ukrainian side of the border, so that if the Russians try to invade again, they end up killing NATO troops and then we're all at war. But yeah, no, I don't, you're joking? Oh, see, I don't think that's bad at all. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. The problem is Russia's not going to agree to it, a demilitarized zone. But that's why I like the idea of doing the NATO troops, because NATO is its own demilitarized zone, so to speak, right? You put the NATO, well, whether it's in the borders or the big cities, it's a, Gandalf, you shall not pass kind of moment by having the troops there. It's funny you say you're joking, but I don't think it's well, let me put it this way too. The only problem with an actual demilitarized zone is then the Russians do what they did, which is it's demilitarized right now, but when Putin wants to attack, then he's going to move up 200,000 troops and attack. So why not? Anyway, so the last story I was going to tell you, this was from Institute for the Study of War, and it's very funny. So you don't think it would ever happen? Fair enough. I'm also not sure if it would help too much because the Russians would just violate it when they want to invade again. So Institute for the Study of War talked about one reason why the Russians, why they did so much worse than we expected in the war, right? That we thought the Russians were much better military. I'm going to read that. Okay, George Barros, who's with Institute for the Study of War, gave an interview to Newsweek, and this is what he said. We realized in retrospect that the Russian military exercises, in other words, those big military exercises they do, the Russian military exercises that we'd studied in minutia for years weren't really exercises. They were choreographed ballets with tanks. Exercises are supposed to stress units, to bring them to their breaking point, to help them learn new operational concepts, to help them find pain points so that they can iron them out and get good at fighting, right? So in other words, these military exercises are supposed to be hard. They're supposed to be difficult. They're supposed to let troops figure out, hey, what isn't working? What is working? What are we good at? What are we bad at? And then you learn from the experience, right? That's what we thought the Russians were doing. But we didn't understand how hollow the exercises had been until we actually saw the First Guards tank army come up against a real-life adversary in Ukraine. I had read about this shortly after the war started, and what I read said just that somehow we found out that what the Russian troops were doing with their military exercises, they were doing it for us in the West, and they were doing it for their leaders. They were faking it. That they weren't actual exercises. They were plays. They were, as this guy said, tank ballets. They had choreographed the entire thing and told these guys, like, okay, you're going to go 50 feet that way. You're going to go this way. Then you're going to do this. Then you're going to say, oh, I'm launching a bomb. And then you're going to say, no, you're not. I'm launching an ABM. Like literally the whole thing was planned. It was a play. so that it wasn't, oh, look how good the troops work together. The troops have been told, I mean, you're not working together at all. They just told them where to go. And we in the West watched it and thought, wow, they really work together well. Their leaders watched and thought, wow, they work together well. They totally BS'd their own leaders. And it just, yeah. So that's one of the reasons why we at least thought they were so good, because they lied, but also it's one of the reasons they weren't that good, because the exercise itself was supposed to be a learning experience, and they weren't learning in the exercise because the exercise was fake. So it's like doing your piano lessons. I did do this once or twice when I had piano lessons. I would tape one of my lessons, and occasionally I would just play the tape in the other room when I didn't want to practice. And I'd sit at the piano and read a book, and my piano would play on the little tape recorder, and Mom would believe it. That's what the Russians did. They played the copy of their piano lesson, and Putin, but we fell for it too. But I mean, what a corrupt country. It really just kind of amazes me how bad they are. I also have a store, by the way. Check it out, store.aravosis.com, where you can, thank you for the shooting stars, the Riverside, where you can find a lot of Ukrainian styled goods that we've got up for sale. 50% of the profits from that go to Ukraine, 50% support my work. Same thing with the auctions, and all the Ukrainian stuff that we auction off in the Discord, 50% goes to Ukraine. And we've already sent about $10,000 of the auction money to Ukraine, which has been great. Thank you for that, Jamie. So yeah, let's do more questions here. All right. And as I said, we're going to hang and do more questions because there was a lot of news tonight. So, and somebody did pledge. Who was this? Harvey Angworth. Thank you so much. That was actually, and that was very generous of you too. I mean, it was generous of you anyway, but thank you, Harvey. I appreciate that. Harvey just pledged on Patreon. Thank you, Harvey. That was very kind of you. Malcolm, thanks for the boxing robe. Jamie with the love you, the love you darts. All right, let me, TikTok. Pull up my questions here. Okay, Q&A. Well, that's an interesting question. How would we ever know if Russia tried to use a battlefield nuke and it failed or misfired? Surely they wouldn't publicize it. Maybe they've tried. The one thing I'd read was that if Russia were to use these battlefield nukes, and I don't know enough of the spycraft behind this. Thank you, Edith, for the high march, and crafty babushka for the rose. Oh, and Vogon for the chili. What I'd read was there are steps in between that we would be able to see or know. I don't know, one Hardly is saying it has a signature. I don't know whether we can detect the radiation. I don't know from the satellite, but apparently there is a process that we would see if they were moving these bombs up to the front, and we'd know it. So that's all I know. But I was curious because one of the things we were talking about was, could Putin even do that to try to freak us out? If he's trying to freak us out and make us think he's going to use a nuke, he could start doing that process to show his hand. So I don't know what it is, but there's 2 points here. One, it's not quite seismic event because the person's asking if the bomb didn't work. So what he's saying is, would we even know if Russia tried to use a battlefield nuke and the nuke just didn't go off because all their equipment sucks? Would we know? And what I was saying was, I believe I had read that there's some way along the way that we would be able to tell that this was a nuke being moved in place. But I don't know enough about it. And I don't know, like I said, do any of you know about that? Western intelligence operating inside Russia. But would we know if they tried to set off a bomb that literally went and nothing happened? That's the question being asked. If he tried to use one of his tactical nukes and it just didn't go off because their weapons suck, would we know about it? Well, radioactive residue, but it wouldn't leave, fair enough, but it wouldn't leave radioactive residue if literally you went, right? You went, hey, this bomb isn't working. That's not going to leave residue, right? I mean, I'm intentionally being a hard ass here because I'm trying to, be difficult about it, but it's Not the question is, it might not be a missile launch though. For example, can't these things be launched in artillery? I'm sure they're launched as artillery, are they not? Now, this you military folks will know. I thought I'd read these would be launched as artillery, for example. Are they not? Or would they be launched as something? I mean, they're not going to be launched as ICBMs. We know that. Satellite in space. Well, that's the question. First of all, I wonder is, would the satellites in space pick up any kind of a nuclear signature from the bomb itself, even if it didn't go off? Let me see here. Oops, I'm just seeing here. It would be bad if an exploded nuke was lying on the battlefield and Russia didn't say anything. Exploded, potential for mishandling fissionable material. Oh, you mean if an unexploded? Well, that's true. Well, they would have to get it, right? Because if it was an unexploded, it would be sitting there. No nuclear artillery. Then how are the bombs actually interesting? Then how are the bombs? Are they from airplanes then? Does anybody know? I mean, tactical nukes, at least either Russian or ours, how are they delivered? I thought for sure it was artillery. Interesting. Thank you for that, though. Thank you, Benji, for that. I mean, I can Google too. We're going to do our longer chat today. I can Google too, but I just figure if you guys want to Google while we're doing this, I'm just very curious. Yeah, the issue isn't accidental. The issue is that they literally don't go off. Yeah, Daniel's saying artillery. I'm sure there's artillery used for tactical nukes. Though I mean, it's possible you could use a plane, but that daylight is doing daylight save. Yes, the U.S. is doing daylight savings time, but it's It's Sunday morning. Hold on. How is nuclear? What's the word I'm looking for? Tactical. How are tactical nukes delivered? Let's see if Google can handle that question. These can be delivered by air, ship, and ground-based systems. For example, some of them can also carry. Okay, that's not enough. Medium range and tactical bombers or naval anti-ship and anti-submarine torpedoes. What about on the ground? No, that's a shitty answer. Sorry, but they're not giving. Copy says tactical are on rockets or dropped. Artillery was a special kind with nuke ammo, but these are pretty rare stuff and old too. Oh, interesting. This arty kind is used even now with standard ammo. Okay, so they're still typically rockets or dropped. That's interesting. Huh. Interesting. ChatGPT says yes. Well, ChatGPT has a mind of its own. Well, I mean, I'm sure you can make one. I was just curious what the typical delivery method is. For example, if the Russians were to use one, what do we believe would be the typical delivery method they would use in Ukraine? And that was my question. Would they use artillery, or would it be some kind of an air, like a missile-based system? Thank you, Donovan. Appreciate that. A cannon firing a nuke. Oh. And thank you, somebody who's going under the name of, Margaret. Thank you. Margaret just gave a lovely pledge as well. Thank you for that. I appreciate it on Patreon. Thank you, Margaret. That's very sweet of you. Thank you very much for that. Yeah. Let's look and see any more here. Oop. Monica, I just have no idea what you're writing there, but I can try to hold on. Let's see what Monica's writing here. One moment. Got somebody writing in German, and I am not a German speaker. But let's see. 1 second here. Since we're at the later parts of the show, I don't mind taking a minute and looking here. All right. Let's see what Monica's saying. Huh. Pope Benedict? Pope Benedict, I thought he died. Is he still around? He died, I thought, didn't he? Or he's dying. Pope Benedict offers himself for, I guess, mediation in the Ukraine war with Putin and Zelensky? From Nur Zürcher Zeitung, I'm guessing it's Zurich. No one can deny anymore that this is a worldwide war. We are in a world war in Ukraine. Its imperial interests, Francis explained, not only of the Russian Empire, but also of Imperium. Yeah, it's doing a bad translation of this, though, so I'm not sure. Yeah, not sure. Sorry, Monica. Well, I'd have to see the article probably to get a better translation, but or if you want to post like a decent Google Translate of it, just a paragraph, that might help. She's on LinkedIn. Hello, good to see you there, Monica. But I speak many languages. German is not one of them. And my Google, oh, funny. Okay, I'm laughing because that's exactly what she did. Okay, thank you. She actually tried to post the translation. Pope Benedict offers himself for deviation. I'm going to guess mediation. This is a global war. This is a global war, says Francis, who has been Pope for exactly 10 years on March 13th. We're in a world war. Oh, Pope Francis, world war. There are imperial interests in Ukraine, Francis further explained, not only of the Russian Empire, but also of empires elsewhere. Oh, Jesus. Whom exactly he's referring to, Francis didn't say. He's such a, these guys are such idiots. Seriously. I mean, my God. Yeah. Imperial interest elsewhere. Yeah, thanks. Great job. Otanbot says there's no definitive answer to what would be the typical delivery method for tactical nukes in the war in Ukraine, as it would depend on various factors such as the target location, the distance, the weather, and the availability of delivery systems. Okay. Yeah. So starting on Monday, oh God. Okay. It's going to be very confusing. So daylight savings time or the opposite or whatever it is, our time changes. Our clock goes ahead on Sunday in America. So come Monday, this show is going to be at a different time. It will always be 6 p.m. in the evening, New York. I live in Washington, D.C., but most people know New York better. So 6 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. New York City time in the evening is when my show is. So on Monday, you'll need to double check what time that is. Now, what I will do is on Monday, I'll set it up right now. I may set up Monday's show right now on TikTok so that it's there saved in my profile. So at least you'll see the time locally for you, because your time change, Roshan saying, doesn't change until the 26th, whereas ours changes this weekend. So it's a mess. But just remember, hey, Vladimir in Croatia, love you. I hear Croatia's wonderful. I have a number of friends who have visited. They like it very much. So yeah, just remember that on Monday. But yeah, I'll right afterwards set up I'll set it up right afterwards. All right. All right. Let me look at another question or two, and then we can get wrapped up shortly if we want. But let me see here. The cardboard drone. Yeah, Pope Benedict did die. That's what I thought. Pope Benedict died. Pope Francis is still Pope. Yeah, the article must mean Pope Francis. The translation must have been funny. Yeah, I was in that. I knew Pope Benedict died a couple weeks ago or something. He was a jerk, but whatever. Yeah, because I saw them all crying about it. It was like a week ago or something. Oh, yes, we talked about this yesterday. Did you hear the USA is keeping intel from Ukraine, preventing the Russian Federation from being tried for war crimes? Yes, so far it's true. It's not from Ukraine. The Pentagon is opposing the other administration agencies who support this. The Pentagon is opposing the U.S. providing intelligence to the International Criminal Court in The Hague that would help them prosecute the Russians for war crimes. The Pentagon is worried that this would be used against us. Someday they would use this precedent against Americans, and they'd be trying to go after Americans. And because we gave it for Russia, we'd have to give it for them. And that ain't the way politics works. The way politics works is we give the International Criminal Court our intelligence when we want to, and when we don't want to, we don't. So it is still up to Joe Biden to decide, and one hopes very well that Biden will decide to do this because everyone else agrees it's a good idea, including even Lindsey Graham, who's like a not far right, but conservative Republican senator. Lindsey Graham is totally on board with it. So, yeah, so it's up to Biden. My suspicion is Biden's going to overrule them and say, come on, because also it's true. If they want if they're coming after us and we don't think it's fair, we don't give it to them next time. Big deal. How hard is that? It sets a precedent, please. But the idea that we're not going to help go after Russian war crimes is outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. Oh, there was something about this the other day. There was, Johnny. JSM Johnny is saying, and I think this may have happened over the weekend or something because I saw it and then forgot about it. Thank you, Paul Gray, for the super sticker. I heard Moscow cut the Wagner group leader, so Prigozhin, who's the head of the mercenary group, cut him completely off, turned the phones off, and that's why he had to put videos on television to request bullets from Putin. Okay, I did read something about their phones getting cut off. No. Oh, geez, sorry. That's TikTok. TikTok went to a new video. It's very funny. No, they can't. Putin can't stand the guy, and Putin finally had enough. This guy thought he walked on water, and he couldn't be touched. And Putin is making very clear to him that he can be touched. So yeah, it's good. It's funny, but it's good. What may be part of China's strategy? Sorry, Otambot was saying some idea there. Oops, come on. Somehow it brought me to some strange creators page. Okay, more questions. I don't know that we've got any more questions here. Guys, any more questions? Otherwise, well, thank you for the fireworks there, Leanne. Yeah, the thing is, first of all, BGD woman, it's off topic, but I'll answer. Who from the U.S. will answer for the children killed in Iraq and Afghanistan? Well, one problem, Afghanistan was a totally legitimate war. We didn't win, but you know what? Afghanistan assisted in bombing the World Trade Center where 3,000 people died. So too bad, as far as I'm concerned. Afghanistan, wish the war went better. The invasion of Afghanistan was totally justified. Second of all, the whole bullshit about 500,000 children dying or 1 million children dying in Iraq is utter bullshit. And it's something that the far left likes to talk about, but that was debunked a while ago. So I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. Also, Saddam freaking Hussein. I'm not a big fan of invading based on a lie. By the way, Sheena, I did see your gift there, so thank you. I'm not a big fan of what George Bush did. You don't start a war based on a lie. So I'm not going to defend that. That's BS. And that is a problem because basically anybody who died in that war, even if they were deaths that were unintentional, they were deaths that were unnecessary because it was a war that was based on a lie. So I'm not going to defend that. But the whole issue, because what that question is getting at too is the sanctions were bad because the sanctions killed children. Well, okay. So would you rather we just empowered a country led by a dictator who was one of the world's top terrorists and we just made sure he got even more money so he could commit even more terrorism around the world? Like Gaddafi. These are the same people who defend Gaddafi. Oh, the U.S. invaded and killed Gaddafi. Yeah, good. Seriously, that stuff just boggles my mind. Absolutely boggles my mind. Yeah, and there's no way Madeleine Albright said that. There's no way she said that. She wouldn't say it like that. But yeah, it's just, but I love the Gaddafi defenders too. It's like, yeah, poor Gaddafi. We killed him. Oh, he was he was one of the nicer terrorists. He only blew up planes full of, men, women, and children flying over Scotland. Sweet guy. So yeah, I don't buy that shit. I'm sorry. But again, I'm not a pacifist. But this is why you don't start wars based on a lie. And Bush did start a war based on a lie because people will die. And by the way, sometimes people are collateral damage in wars. People die in wars. It's bad. And sometimes civilians will die in a war. The point is, you're not supposed to target civilians. Russia has been exclusively targeting civilians. That's what makes what Russia's doing a war crime. It is not a war crime for civilians to die in a war. But again, I ain't going to go defend the second Iraq war because Bush lied in order to start it. So, again, ain't going to get me to defend that one, and I won't. But I get a little bit of a tinge of anti-Americanism because it's also criticizing the sanctions, and I think that's BS. I think it's absolutely BS. So, bleh. So there. What else we got here? China has renamed some Russian cities on its maps to their original Chinese names. Oh, that would be delicious. That would be absolutely delicious. Well, Russia's got to watch it because I'm telling you, now is a nice time for somebody who wants a prime land in Russia to move on in, whether it's Georgia that wants some of its land back or China or anybody else. It's, it's interesting. All right, guys. Yep, Paul, thank you for that. I thanked you. All right, guys, let's call it quits. We're already at 7:25. TikTok is, oh God, will you? Okay, all right. You know what, BGD, you're leaving. NATO target civilians in Serbia. You got blown up in Serbia because you were committing genocide. You were literally committing ethnic cleansing of your neighbors in Kosovo. Of course you got blown up. You deserve to get blown up, and we do it again. Which is why when you're mucking around with Kosovo again right now, which is what Serbia is doing, NATO made very clear in a statement about 2 months ago that if Serbia does, get ready. So yeah, you've got the balls to defend what you people did against Kosovo. That's right. You got bombed and you'd get bombed again. No, because that's wrong. You do not commit. You did what Putin's doing because unfortunately you guys are too close to Putin. You did exactly what Putin is doing. And you got called out on it and you got stopped. And we've been protecting the Kosovars for 20 years now, 24 years, 25, 24 years now because of you people. So don't even, see, I knew it. By the way, the mods and I were discussing this the other day, and we were talking about this, about how, you can always tell when someone's a troll versus someone disagreeing with you. And usually, and a troll to me is somebody who's just like disruptive and kind of rude. Disagreeing is just disagreeing. And it's like, okay, I saw somebody message on TikTok and say, this is the first time I've disagreed with John. That's okay. And that's okay. That's a normal person, right? The trolls are the ones, and I always said, you got to wait till like the second or third comment and the troll will reveal themselves. But that this one, somehow we're talking about Ukraine, and she wants to talk about, the children America killed in Iraq, and you're already going, okay, something's going on here, right? And then she comes up and brings up Serbia, 1999. You're okay. You're like, woo, troll revealed, troll reveal. They just can't help it with themselves. I've always been a pro-war leftist. I mean, I have no problem. Because I've worked on civil rights issues and everything else, but I am not a civil rights pacifist. That is not who I am. I think you stand up to bullies. I've always felt you stand up to bullies. The only thing is you do not use American military power if you're not going to win. If it can't, obviously you also use it correctly, you use it justly, you try to achieve good things, etc. But you also don't do it if it's not going to accomplish its purpose. And by the way, George Bush, you don't freaking lie about it either, But anyway, all right, guys. Rawr. Yeah, the Serbians. No, Serbia's got way too much of a screwed up thing going on there with the Russian influence, and they're still way too wedded to Russia. It's very sad. It's very sad. But that country needs to kind of wake up. And frankly, they need to have a little come to Jesus about what they did to Kosovo 24 years ago, because they need to sort of sit there and go, yeah, we did kind of try to wipe out an entire nation of people. Maybe that's a bad thing because they're Muslim, among other reasons. Maybe that's bad. Yeah, maybe it is, Grr. All right. Let me get here. Well, the case with the Middle East is a problem because it gets worse and worse. I mean, Middle East may never change, but, but you can't let countries like Iran get more powerful, And Israel's a hell of a lot more complicated too, because I think young people, we're not doing our Israeli speech today, but I am very in the middle on Israel and Palestine because when I grew up, it was Palestinians nonstop blowing up Israeli babies. When I grew up, I got to watch that all the time. And they were blowing up airplanes with women and children on them, all sorts of things. Now you've got idiot Netanyahu, who for the last 20 years, not just Netanyahu, but the Israelis went cuckoo for the last 20 years and decided to just become really bad people. And it's flipped. And frankly, they've gotten justifiable criticism for the stuff they've been doing because Netanyahu, I think, is a kook. But at the same time, Israel, there's a reason Israel acts the way it does, because people, first of all, have been, killing Jews for, 4,000 years. So they kind of win the record on as far as who's the most oppressed. They win the record. Well, Native Americans, clearly Native Americans might win the record, maybe because they got wiped out. So fair enough. Any community that's been wiped out wins the record, but the Jews pretty close to the top. But I'm very in the middle on that one because The Palestinians got a raw deal. Their own Arab neighbors couldn't have given a damn about the Palestinians. That's the problem too. They never wanted to help them. And then, the Palestinian terrorists decided to blow up Israeli women and babies for 50 years. And well, then people fight back the same way. So that crisis is just, in America, we call it the Hatfields and the McCoys, which is basically the, like an age-old feud between two families going back 100 years or whatever. And I feel like that's what you've got now in the Middle East. It's just everybody can point to something. Well, you blew up my father. Well, you blew up my mother. Well, the Israelis did this. Well, the Palestinians did this. And everybody's got an example they can give, which means it's never going to get settled. No, it's very upsetting to me because I feel bad for, and the Israeli settlers are batshit crazy as far as I'm concerned. Netanyahu's crazy. But the Israeli people overall, I get where they're coming from. And even the other day, the settlers went nuts on a Palestinian town. Well, guess what? They went nuts on a Palestinian town after some Palestinians killed two Israeli brothers. So you're like, well, yeah. Like, what a surprise. Violence begets violence. No, the Middle East thing, again. Anyway, God knows we're not talking. I am not talking about the Middle East tonight or ever. All right. Yeah, really. Oh, the Gaddafi thing. Yeah, the Milosevic cheerleaders. All right, let me do a quick recap of what we talked about tonight, and then I am heading out, folks. Remember, tomorrow morning we are doing the coffee talk on TikTok for the coffee talk for the paid TikTok subscribers. That's going to be 10 a.m. Eastern time, US, 10 a.m. New York City time. And then Monday, I am back at 6 a.m. Eastern. I'm going to set up a thing on TikTok, and actually, I'll even set up the one on YouTube, etc. right now, so you guys can see the time in come Monday, that time is going to change. So it's going to change on Monday, because actually come Sunday, the time will change because our clock goes ahead. So just be aware on Sunday, the show is going to be, I guess, an hour earlier. Yeah, because at 5 o'clock here, it's actually going to be 6 o'clock here. So the show will be an hour earlier, I guess. All right, really quick. Georgia's parliament did strike down the proposed law that's been causing all the protests. Russia had another massive missile attack, but it was pretty much done for propaganda purposes, and it suggests that Russia may not actually have a lot of missiles. The Wagner group has paused its operations in Bakhmut for the time being, could be regrouping, could be exhausted. Russian troops have been given a memo telling them if they get into trouble, claim that they're Wagner mercenaries. I love that. In Vuhledar, the town the Russians got beaten the bejesus out of a few weeks ago, Russian forces may be preparing a new offensive that they're expected to lose again because they were ordered to win by the defense minister, so they don't have a choice. Russia, according to CNN, Russia has been capturing some of the U.S. and NATO-provided weapons on the battlefields in Ukraine and providing them to Iran, which is bad. And Iran is trying to reverse engineer them. Per Sky News, Switzerland's government will not change its longstanding policy banning the transfer of Swiss-made arms to a third country. I then talked for a while about JDAMs, a new system we're providing to Ukraine that is now operational that allows them to turn dumb bombs into smart bombs. And it's a very good thing and having a big, or they think it will have a big impact. And finally, Institute for the Study of War talked about one reason the Russians are having such a bad time in Ukraine, and we all got fooled thinking the Russian military was much better than it is because the Russians have been faking their military exercises. And rather than them being actual military exercises where the Russian troops, practice and learn stuff, they were, as this was called, choreographed tank ballet. They were literally just giving them instructions and going, okay, you drive that way 50 feet, then take a right. Okay, you at that point pull out your gun. Okay, so that the whole thing was faked and they were getting no practice whatsoever, which faked all of us. So we thought the Russian military, we're like, wow, they're really good at this, but it also faked Putin and everybody else who had no idea that his own troops weren't even getting the training they were supposed to get. So, all right, I guess we're trying to hit 200,000 likes on TikTok. We're at 198,000. Let's do it, folks. Tap the screen. I see people saying we're trying to get there. Let's do it. Do it. I'll do it too. I think it lets me do it. Come on. There we go. Thank you, guys. I don't know what it does. I think it probably doesn't hurt. It tells the TikTok algorithm that people like the show, so it can't hurt. Thank you, guys. All right. So like I said, join me tomorrow morning if you are a paid TikTok subscriber. In the next week, I will figure out, for the rest of you Discord folks who pay $5 and up, we will figure out how to include you next Saturday. So I will then have Discord and TikTok running at the same time, and we'll do our coffee talk Saturday morning. We'll hang out for half an hour, and it's just a fun BS blah, blah, blah kind of chat session. It's not really very heavy. It's just fun. I know the tank ballet thing just made me laugh. Oh, thank you for that. God, we haven't had a sweet dreams in a while. Thank you, Jetta Mom. All right, guys, then I will see some of you tomorrow, and I'll see the rest of you 6 o'clock Eastern time, US, Monday, keeping in mind the time changes in America this weekend. So you will check what time it really is on Monday to be sure. Thank you, Kanausi, and thank you, Boost Fighter. And as I said, the last thing to do on TikTok, come Monday or whatever, before you come to the show, check the link on my homepage, and it'll tell you, I'm going to set the show up right now, so it'll tell you what time the show is. And same thing for you guys. I'll set it up now, so on Monday, you can check the link on YouTube or LinkedIn or whatever you like, and it'll tell you what time it is. All right, and thank you for the corgi. All right, guys, have a good night. I'm going to eat something and watch more. I mean, really enjoying the what's it called? It's a show about the Holy Grail and the Templars. What the hell is it called? You know, the Templar show on Netflix. Whatever it is, it's very good. It's very good, actually. Done very well. A bientôt, Nathan. It's anyway, I'm totally forgetting the name of it now, but I'm enjoying it. So check it out. Monty Python. No, it's not Monty Python. The Nightfall. There you go. The Nightfall. It's enjoyable. I think it's good. It's, you know, it runs the risk of getting soap opera-y, but otherwise it's very good. Search for the Holy Grail, or it's the Search for the Holy Grail. Exactly. All right. I'll talk to you later, guys. Good night. My dog is already in motion.